It's the Pacers. It's the Knicks. The rivalry is back on the last couple years. What did these two teams do this offseason? Where does it have them intersecting? Can the Pacers and Knicks continue to be rivals? Gavin Schall and I break it all down today on the Locked On Pacers podcast.
You are Locked On Pacers, your daily Indiana Pacers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What's up, everybody? Happy Monday. Hope you had a great weekend, and welcome into another edition of the Locked On Pacers podcast, where we, of course, talk about the Indiana Pacers. As always, my name's Tony East. I cover the team for Forbes, where you can find two stories of note from this weekend on Tyrese, Haliburton, and James Johnson. But today, on this feed, we are talking about the Knicks. We're continuing the tour to rivals here on Locked On Pacers. We did Locked On Bucks with Justin Garcia, talking about Myles Turner and that rivalry. We talked about gap years and the Pacers-Celtics overlap with John Corrales. And today we get to the Knicks with Locked On Knicks host Gavin Schall. Two teams with very different off seasons. What is the status of the rivalry? Where did those transactions take these teams? Where do they stand now? What are the next steps for both teams? Really fun discussion because Gavin and I don't talk enough. We'll finish this with 10 minutes with Danny Cunningham from Locked On Cavs on Thursday, and then maybe a Pistons thing, maybe a Magic thing, any division foes. But I feel like the playoff opponents from the last 2 years are the topics of rivals for the Pacers these days. But this week, we'll talk lots of news, some offseason stuff. But today, we're talking Knicks with Gavin Schall. Let's just get right to it.
All right, guys, as promised, we continue our team preview series with an old, familiar, painfully familiar foe, the Indiana Pacers, Tony East of the Locked On Pacers podcast. We were just talking about it a little bit off air, but exciting summer, gallivanting around Europe. That's what happens, man, when you come within 24 minutes of a championship. You know what? I'm taking a big vacation after that. You put in the work, man.
Yeah, I worked through June 20. Not complaining, obviously, but games through June 22nd. Is like I'm ready to go to another continent to scout the Dottiers of the world, for example.
There you go, man. Keep peace going forward. All right, so I wanted to start here because I almost wanted to it was probably too fresh, a little too much pain, and you were busy covering the shockingly great NBA Finals, but I almost wanted to do this podcast like a few days after that Game 6 because I love hearing you talk about basketball, and at this point, you're about as educated on the Knicks, I think, as any other Locked On podcast host. You just watched the Indiana Pacers come as pretty much as close as possible to winning a title without winning a title. After seeing the Knicks now 2 straight years, how close do you think they are to that level? And do you think the moves they made this offseason, new head coach in Mike Brown, a couple key bench additions in Jordan Clarkson and Gershon Yabusele, how close do you think the Knicks are to hitting the level necessary to beat a team like Oklahoma City and win an NBA championship?
Yeah, depth important, right? Like you asked me to come up with some Knicks questions, and I have some, and they still are depth related for the Knicks, obviously. But that's a big thing. Like I would say of the last 2 years, the Pacers have played 6 Eastern Conference series. The Knicks series they played this year was probably the second best team they played. The Celtics championship team, obviously, number one, right? Yeah. Like they got swept in that series. But like the most challenging thing, like they had no problem with Giannis, right? They beat them easily. They smoked the Cavs. They even played pretty well against the Celtics. They lost 3 of those games at the buzzer. Like Cat solo groups was one of the most challenging things they've done like at all, right? And Brunson obviously was a monster in the 2 years ago series. So I think the Knicks have enough like star level stuff. Obviously, they've just made the conference finals for the first time in a quarter century. The role players like Josh Hart having a bad series was weird. And everybody said the same things. And you heard it and you had to hear the criticism and respond to it. And they were pretty much right. That's just like they were too top heavy. And when the Pacers played that style a whole game, they just couldn't keep up. Right. And so I still have not as many questions, but like, I'm like, man, are the Knicks like one injury away from being like a little thin? But in general, I think going the route of like, okay, Payne gone, great. Clarkson's better. Okay, an actual backup center where it's not like Precious, please, please do something. You know, Yabusele is really good.
I just want to Precious, please is like a 90s Nick at Night show. I'm watching every episode before I go to sleep. But yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. Well, and yeah, I just think they have enough depth and talent. They're closer. I still think I would like one more player on the Knicks personally, but like they are so financially restricted that getting any talent is such a good thing for them. So I think they learned the right lesson in that they needed a little bit more depth to be able to spread things out, because the way the NBA is now, it's 48 minutes of physicality and speed. And if you have two guys who can't play, or you're burning your guys out too much because of that, it's really hard to keep up in the playoffs. The two highest paced playoff teams were in the finals.
Is that one player Ben Simmons? Perhaps was that the one guy?
Honestly,
you're like, if they could just add Ben Simmons, I think
would he play? Like, they have a deep front court. Well, to me, I think of like Brogdon for the Knicks would be the guy.
I'm a fan of. I think him or Shamet are my top two.
Shamet was good against the Pacers too.
He was great. Yeah. He was arguably like their sixth best player, though. Tom Thibodeau did not really treat it that way. I'm curious what your perspective is on like the tenability of Brunson and Cat together, because obviously Indiana does, and this is like one of the key differences in the series. Like they do such a good job of insulating Tyrese Haliburton, who is just by the sheer fact of his size, maybe less of a pressure point than Jalen Brunson is, but they do such a good job shielding him, and then obviously do not give up anything on the offensive end. And to me, like, that was on paper the biggest difference between the two teams. I do wonder, and I actively wondered throughout the series, like if the Knicks just sort of went the opposite way and said, you know what, we're probably not going to stop Indiana, no matter if we play Josh Hart for 44 minutes or just play him for 30 minutes like he probably should. What if we really lean into offense, lean into shooting, play Deuce McBride, play Landry Shamet? And obviously that is some of the hope, at least on my end. I don't know if that was the Knicks front office main goal in hiring Mike Brown and replacing Tom Thibodeau. But what do you think about that question of like, if the Knicks two stars are presumably in like a conference finals type series, NBA finals type series, going to be out there for 36 minutes apiece, can they be so effective offensively that the defense doesn't matter as much? Or conversely, like, is there a world where they play a little bit better and you can have both of them on the court defensively and hold up just well enough? Because I do think some of that was just like their liabilities, and some of that was like maybe Cat wasn't used in as diverse enough of a way, or at times Tom Thibodeau, instead of just switching Jalen Brunson, living with the results, was trying to hedge and recover, like a coverage that Indiana just torched repeatedly. I kind of think there are solutions there, because to your point, Cat was just that good. We know Brunson is capable of being that good, but I'm fascinated from an opponent's perspective. You're like, that's barbecue chicken every time I see those two guys.
Okay, so you kind of answered both the ways I would answer.
Sorry.
No, that's good. That's good. The first one is I would like to answer this question after seeing like 40 games of Mike Brown as a coach, right? Because that was always something that it's not weird. Like, I get why this happened, but it's the conference finals, and the Knicks are better when their stars are separated, right? Like, Brunson and not Cat groups were good, and Cat no Brunson groups were great. Like the best. That game. I was in Indy. Crap. Game 3 or 4 when Cat had that insane fourth quarter that like saved the series. I think
game three.
Yeah. And Brunson was not on the floor for like all of that, right? And it's like, how is this possible that the Pacers are like, great, put them both on the floor, that's better. You know, that shouldn't be the case. And like during the regular season, the Knicks offense was so good because those two guys gave him such a good floor even together. So if Mike Brown just like naturally finds ways to make them more synergistic, like that alone makes the Knicks better, right? Because they're both awesome players. The Pistons series was the opposite, where it's just like, it was just those two being like, yeah, we're just better than every Pistons player, right? And they were. But yeah, the other part of it is what you said, like, can they find a little bit more defensively with those two out there that it doesn't matter if they're not as synergistic, the team is still so good in those situations. And that's where maybe Yabusele helps, because you can play two bigs and not get killed, or, you know, just anything else maybe you can play Josh Hart off the bench because you could start Jordan Clarkson, which might be weird, but like if that makes the lineups better, it makes the lineups better. So that might be the answer too. And I thought Tibbs did well in the playoffs last year, but I at least understand what the problems the Knicks had being like, not big problems, but involving their big players, their best players, why they would consider like, well, if we can find better solutions with a different coach, that would make our finances and team make more sense. So I think the answer to that question, honestly, will be based on how Mike Brown does. Because if he doesn't do a good job, then don't get me wrong, the Knicks are still awesome. Like, they don't need to like change their team, but they certainly have some more existential questions of like, well, is it actually possible to win more than this with this group?
Yeah, and I hope, to your point, like Mike Brown actually tries to find that out during the regular season, because that was the main issue that Tom Thibodeau had there, almost, was lack of curiosity and saying, we have this one lineup, this is the way, I'm sure this is the way, even if the numbers are screaming that it is not the way. And if you're Mike Brown, to your point, like, have a couple games where we start Gershon Yabusele and Karl Anthony Towns.
Yes.
Try starting Deuce McBride. Maybe try the old starting lineup and say, hey, what if we tweak these three things defensively and offensively? Maybe it works. Like, I don't mind if you go back to that, but just use the experiment as or use the regular seasons as grounds for experimentation, because especially with no Haliburton Turner in Indiana, obviously with no Jason Tatum in Boston, like you do have that margin for error. You do have that luxury where you could experiment a lot. One, you might find something better and you might be a dominant regular season team. But even if you don't, the worst case scenario is probably that you're the second or third seed. And that's not that scary, again, in the Eastern Conference without Boston or without Indiana at full strength.
This is like the Knicks' best chance to make the finals, like it ages, right? Like, they clearly are top 2 projected heading into the season. I'm very psyched about the Knicks, and I really I love Mike. I don't know how much you've listened to Mike Brown. I cannot wait for Mike Brown of the full season in New York media. That dude holds a room better than anybody. I can't wait for that. That'll be fun. But yeah, it'll be really interesting to see how this all just coalesces for the Knicks, because this is also like the natural cycle of a team, right? They know they're good. They get Brunson on the contract extension. They get Cat. Okay, they know they have the team, and if the team didn't quite meet expectations in a series they thought they could only make the finals, you change your coach. If the coaching change doesn't work, then it's just like, oh boy, what do we do now? So on one hand, you go into the season as the Knicks of like, wow, we can make the finals, like very reasonably make the finals. And then it's like, dang, if we have a bad playoffs or a bad season, like how do you even look in the mirror? It's hard to make changes. Everybody, quick break. We got to talk about FanDuel. August 26th, it's coming up this week, and it is officially FanDuel Futures Day, a brand new holiday for football fans who live for bold predictions and preseason hunches. For just those 24 hours, FanDuel is giving you deals on NFL season predictions. So whether you're calling your MVP, whether you have your eyes on a long shot division winner, like maybe the Colts, or if you're ready to crown your Super Bowl champ before week 1 kicks off, that is your moment. Take a flyer for the MVP race. Why not? Is Josh Allen going to do it? Is Mahomes going to get it again? Is someone else going to sneak in there? Crown your champion. Can it be a repeat? What's going to happen there? Or parlay your division winner dark horses. Why not? It's the perfect day to do it. Visit the FanDuel app today. Start planning your future bets now, because Futures Day is one day and one day only. FanDuel, play your game.
All right. We're back on Locked On Knicks, Locked On Pacers. With the dust settled 5 weeks or so later, how do you feel? How do you talk about the Pacers letting Myles Turner walk? I know in Knicks land, in Gavin land, at least I want to speak for the entire Knicks fan base, that was a shocker. I didn't understand in the moment. As I kind of reflect and look at like the aprons and just like the direction so many teams. I mean, we saw what the Celtics did, right? And basically dump like half of a championship winning team with only one real healthy run in which they won the NBA championship. We realized, all right, we're operating in a different kind of reality financially. Like teams are aggressively planning for the future. I think my perspective on it, Tony, which doesn't really matter compared to yours, but I just looked at like the teams that were great last year or championship caliber, and I saw the Celtics with Kristaps Porzingis, Indiana with Myles Turner, of course Oklahoma City with Chet Holmgren, and like the 3 and rim protecting centers, and a lot of times plus with those guys, and like a more diverse skill set as sort of a skeleton key for greatness. And it is just so difficult to find that skill set. I think that was maybe the main area. I was surprised Indiana wasn't just going to say like, screw it, we're going to pay Myles Turner, whatever. But what's your perspective on them letting him leave?
I was surprised too. Like, even if the rosy interpretation was that he wasn't like that good in the Knicks series, right?
Sure.
He was fine. He made shots, but like he wasn't as effective defensively or on the glass. And like it should not have been a thing that they were like, yeah, we should go to Tony Bradley, and they did, and it worked. And then the finals, he was just rough, right? Rough finals. Okay, you got to make it that far to be bad on that stage. And he was very good in the first 2 rounds and very good for 10 years for the franchise. So one, that argument didn't hold up to me. But two, the other thing people would say is like, well, they don't have Tyrese. Why are they paying the tax this year? They're going to have him again. It's not like his career is over. So yeah, I was shocked. I mean, I thought it made all the sense in the world to keep him. He's very good. He is, in that 8 through 12 range of best centers in the league. That's just on talent. Stop right there. Thing two is that he fits very well with what they do. Like, he spaces out for Siakam and makes cross matching challenging, and he fits very well with Haliburton and the passing. He's good defender, right? Why would you not want that player, right? And they have no way to get a center that costs more in the mid-level now. That's why they have Jay Huff and Isaiah Jackson as their center rotation now. So I understand that in this 1 year without Haliburton, things are a little different and weird, and you might be like, dang, like maybe we don't want Myles Turner at some certain salary number. But like, to negotiate that hard that he's willing to look elsewhere and then does get the contract you want somewhere else and has gone to their biggest or second biggest rival right now, the other one being potentially the Knicks. it's shocking, right? It's crazy that it's very rare that I think the Pacers front office makes like a huge misstep. Obviously, lots of teams make mistakes. I thought that was a huge misstep and a big mistake that they made to lose him. And who knows how, like, even if Tyrese Haliburton's as good as he was before the injury, which has like Kevin Durant, that's it, is the list of guys who that's happened with than Achilles, they're going to be worse because they don't have Myles Turner, right? So it's like, what's the goal now? So I was surprised. I think Turner got the contract he wanted, and the Bucks said, hey, we have to waive and stretch Dame to give this to you, so you have to accept this right now. And he took it. And that's bad news for the Pacers and good news for the Bucks. And it's just super weird.
Yeah. I'm still surprised. I just think those guys with his specific skill set, to your point, and it was the key to Oklahoma City. It was the key to Indiana, right? Like you hear NBA analysts talk about like weakness theory, like who's the weakest player? How do you attack them? And like the Knicks had these
John Morant was perfect.
Yeah, like the Knicks had these obvious weak points to attack, and you play in Oklahoma City, there was nothing to attack. You play Boston at full health, there was not really an area to attack. You play Indiana at full health, and this was like in some ways the brilliance of the team. Like there was just, at least in the starting lineup, there was not really an obvious like weak point on either end. Maybe Haliburton defensively a little bit, but they, as we said before, insulated him pretty well. I guess having said that, no Haliburton, no Turner next season. How do you think the Pacers are approaching next season? Is it a point of pride saying like, watch this, we still have Rick Carlisle, we still have Andrew the Killer Nembhard, we still have Pascal Siakam, like we're gonna go out there, we're gonna kick some butt, we're gonna compete our what's off every single night. We're going to focus on development, and we're going to see, all right, can Andrew Nembhard make a leap for when Tyrese Haliburton's back? And if he's only 90% of his former self, at least that first season back, like he can compensate. We're going to let someone like Johnny Furphy play a whole bunch of minutes and really show us something. We're going to let Ben Mathurin maybe up his extension number a little bit with some stats. Or is it a stealth tank? Like, do they try to get like a high pick? I don't expect that because it's not really what the Pacers do. But what's the approach next year?
Yeah, like if you get the first pick, sick, it's a dream, right? Yeah. Like if anyone's hurt, like, yeah, give them a day off or whatever. But the problem, that's not even the right word. The situation they find themselves in is they have good players still, right? Siakam was an all-star last season, right? He was among the 12 best guys in the East last year. And so that he's already awesome. And then if you were going to say, go ahead and tank, right? What does that look like? Because their rotation's already their young players, right? Nembhard, Mathurin, Nesmith, Toppin's not young, but he's inexperienced, as Knicks fans know, right? Ben Shepherd, Furphy, Isaiah Jackson, like Jay Huff's 26. Like everyone they're playing besides McConnell and Siakam is young and lesser experienced. So like the guys they would play if they were trying to tank, or not even tank, but whatever, be focusing on the draft and long term, is the same guys. So that's problem one, is they're probably just too good with the guys they would be playing. Problem two is, I'll try to do all of them off the top of my head because I don't have my cap sheet up in front of me. But after this season, Siakam, Haliburton, Toppin, Nesmith, McConnell, Shepherd, Walker, and one more are all extension eligible. Like they're not going to, and obviously not all of them are getting extensions, but you don't want to have a bad year when you could potentially be extension eligible in the offseason. So like they're going to be trying, the guys playing are going to be trying, like they don't want to take a year off. Like, it's just impossible for me to imagine anyone's motivation not being to at least try as hard as they can. Obviously, what is the ceiling of that? 42 wins, 40. They're not going to be hosting a first-round series, I wouldn't think. But it would it be great if they got a lottery pick? Like, sure, I guess. But I don't think it's like feasible. So I think they're just going to go as hard, and they should, I think, go as hard as they can with the group they have. And instead, their priority should be figuring out who can get better and who can get better at like playing differently in a way that they'll be more kind of have more versatility when Haliburton does return, because they might not be able to be as reliant on him, right? So can they play other ways or win other ways when he does come back? And that's what their focus should be.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting because it's already a team full of guys that I think are very good at like scaling up or down when a situation requires. Like we saw what Andrew Nembhard did in that Celtics series like 2 years ago. We've seen real flashes from Bennedict Mathurin where he could take over a quarter or a half of like a really of a finals game, honestly. And like Pascal Siakam has proven himself to be like, I don't know, like a top 20 guy, top 22 guy in the entire NBA. Like it's interesting because those guys already have that in there, and at least for the ones on the younger end, like is there another level to go to? And I wanted to ask you about Nembhard specifically, because man, I'm in love with this game as much as it bothers me when it's
Knicks fans gotta hate that dude.
Yeah, I had him as I'm curious where you had him, but we just had to do our Locked On NBA Top 100. Not sure when that's coming out. If not, I would say the date. I had him, I think, as the 55th best player in the NBA. That maybe even feels a little bit low. Do you see a world where he puts together, like, obviously so much competition at the point guard spot, but like an all-star caliber season, if not an all-star birth season, with what he does defensively and some of the shot making for him, and obviously it's going to be at a much higher volume this year?
Honestly, the biggest question about him is like, what is too much of a load? Like, if he is their initiating primary ball handling point guard every play and is their best defensive player, like, you can't do that, right?
It's like prime Drew Holiday, but maybe even more, because he had Anthony Davis. Yeah.
And Carlisle's always been a like 32 minutes max average guy to save everybody for the postseason. Who knows how that'll change with their certainly different goals this year. But like, if he can't do that, like, he cannot handle that load. No one can. It's like, I guess Drew did, but it's like very unfeasible to do that in their situation where there's not like the high end outcome goal. So I obviously, like you, am very curious about his season, because part of the talk when he signed that extension a few years ago is like, well, could he have waited it out? And then if he became a free agent, which would have been either this summer or next, a team would have said, let's pay him a crap ton of money to be our point guard and not our two guard or combo guard or whatever. There's this chance to show that he can do that stuff. He's still under contract with the Pacers, right? And he'll be in a different role when Haliburton comes back. But people assume he can be better leading or running a team, because that's what he did at Gonzaga a little bit. He's playing with Suggs. And that's what he showed at times with Haliburton out in the past. Like, he was a killer against the Celtics in the conference finals 2 years ago when Haliburton got hurt. So among their most interesting players, because he's doing totally different stuff, right? And if he plays awesome, like, did that allow them to drop McConnell's minutes in 2 years when Haliburton's back? Like, that'd be huge, because he's going to be 34 then. So he is just so interesting, because he's clearly so good and can do more. But what exactly is the limit of what Andrew Nembhard can do? And how much grace does he deserve playing a full new role on a team with different expectations? Because like you said, he could be awesome, right? I put him at somewhere close to where you did in the top 100 rankings. I'll be very curious where he ends up. But he's a great player, and he has shown in the past that he can handle this kind of role. What does it look like for 82 games? How awesome or not awesome in maybe ways does he look?
I completely forgot that him and Suggs played together in college. Can you imagine if you're like a hotshot point guard at Pepperdine and you just see those two walk on the court? It's just a nightmare. Just gonna.
Yeah, they were great.
Yeah, Jesus.
One more break here, everybody. We got to talk about OpenPhone. If you're running a business, you know that every missed call is money left on the table. Think about the last time you had an urgent need, maybe a plumber, maybe a different service provider. If the first person didn't answer your call, did you wait for them? Probably not. You moved on. That is why you need OpenPhone. It's the #1 business phone system built to streamline and scale your customer communications, all from an app on your phone or your computer. They let you manage business calls and texts from one single app. They have a shared inbox feature. It's a game changer where you can jump into any conversation instantly without missing a beat. Plus, they have an AI agent that'll handle some after hours calls. They'll answer common questions and capture leads for you, so you don't miss a customer. They're offering listeners of Locked On Pacers 20% off your first 6 months at openphone.com/LockedOnNBA. That's OPENPHONE.com/LockedOnNBA. And if you have an existing number with another service, OpenPhone will port them over at no extra charge. OpenPhone, no missed calls, no missed customers.
All right, we're back to wrap up this crossover edition, man. I feel nostalgic, Tony, for like a week there. You were my co-host along with Alex. But we're gonna wrap up this summer edition, previewing both teams. Anything else in particular to look out for with Indiana next year? I know some real questions, particularly at the center spot. I'm really interested to see like the extent to which they're going to trust Jay Huff and play Jay Huff, because he was really fun in very limited minutes in Memphis. And obviously, like in the loosest of terms, replicates some of that Myles Turner skill set. Like what, if anything else, are your kind of biggest questions or just stuff you're looking out for next year?
Yeah, he's their only, like, actually, I mean, Isaiah Jackson, the Knicks saw him 2 years ago, so your listeners know who he is. He didn't play last year, so he's not really new, but he was on the team. So Jay Huff's their only, like, a new rotation player, despite kind of being a different and changed season. He might start, he might come off the bench, who knows? Like, his skill set is, the theory of it is similar to Turner, but he's obviously not as good, right? So how good he is, or what development they can get out of him, because he was good last year, but he's also played 95 total NBA games in 4 seasons. Like, I have no idea how good Jay Huff is going to be, but the theory's nice. I get why they traded for him. His contract is like insanely good somehow for a potential rotation quality player. So it'll be fun to see what he is. That's pretty much their only new interesting thing, though, is how good can he be, or how good can their development machine make him? Like, basically every Pacers player in the Carlisle era who's come from a different team that has gotten a bigger role has gotten sizably better with the Pacers. Not all of them, but pretty close, right? So can Jay Huff follow that Jalen Smith, Obi Toppin, Aaron Nesmith path of, hey, this guy's obviously decent, but young and not quite getting minutes. And then, oh, wow, they're awesome with the Pacers all of a sudden. Can he be the next guy of that? Is probably their only like big, new, interesting thing for external players and external fans.
And was there anything else from a Knicks perspective that you're following from Indy?
Why, yes, there is. They currently only have 13 players, right? So the one, they have to sign somebody else, don't they?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that's why the Simmons-Brogdon thing we talked about earlier. So interesting to me. Like, who is that? What do they think? Also, okay, of their 13 players, one is PJ Tucker, one is Huck Porty, one is Dadier, one is Kolek, who, like, I was excited about it, that his summer league was, like, kind of awful. Yikes, that game against Cam Jones and the Pacers was not very good. They probably need another good player, because that's 9 good players. And don't get me wrong, I think that Brown will be better. Obviously, at all the criticisms of Tibbs and his minutes and depth and all that, like, there's still a one injury to a starter away from being like, this is a little thin. Like, are you concerned about that? I don't think they did a bad job addressing it, because they don't have that many resources to address it. But is that actually a concern to you?
I think it's a major concern, and I think it's something, again, where it's so frustrating that the Knicks were not really optimized from a lineup perspective, or didn't really try enough in the regular season last year. It's that you said this is the Knicks' best chance at a title. And I think on paper, given the competition in the East, that's true. I think once they got past the Celtics last year, that was nominally their best chance at the title, because they were healthy. Good. Like OG Anunoby is someone who is perennially injured, and like had that tied with his rookie season for the healthiest season of his career. Right? It was the only time he played 74 games. It was, Mitch was healthy once he came back, right? Missed the first 50 or so games, and then didn't really miss much time except for when the Knicks preemptively rested him. But OG last year, 74 games. When he played 74 games as a rookie, he was playing 20 minutes a game. He did it in 36 and a half minutes a game last year. I'm hoping that goes down to 30. I don't know how sustainable that is. Karl Anthony Towns has had a pretty significant injury where he misses at least 20 or 30 games pretty much every year of his career for the past 5 seasons. He didn't really have that last year. He had the broken thumb. His knee was bothering him. To his credit, he fought through it. He kept playing, but there wasn't one injury that really knocked him out. The Knicks were really, and credit their training staff, right? They stole, I think it's Casey Smith from the Mavs. Shout out to Nico Harrison again. But they were remarkably healthy, and maybe that training staff keeps them that way. But I don't know if that's something they can totally rely on. I do think they're a little bit more well-equipped, to your point, to handle that, just because Gershon has some really real flexibility in terms of his ability to play the 4, play the 5, be productive, someone who can, again, maybe in the Jay Huff to Turner way, provide a decent facsimile of what Cat can do, even if it's not at the same volume. Obviously, defensively, he's a little bit of an upgrade. Same with Jordan Clarkson, could provide sort of a loose template of Jalen Brunson if you really have to go there, where the Knicks last year just had no one at all with close to that skill set, and it became the Mikal Bridges show, which kind of worked to some extent, and Deuce McBride obviously helped. But I do think they're better equipped than last year to handle an injury. It's why it's so interesting who the next guy they decide to bring in, because if you're planning on a Brunson injury, it's clearly Malcolm Brogdon. If you're looking at the wing depth, which I think is still a clear weak point, unless they think Pacom Dadier is ready to play, and he showed some flashes in 2 games in summer league. If you want to count on that, I don't know. I don't think he's ready to play playoff minutes for the New York Knicks. I think he could be a regular season if he's your 10th guy. That's not the end of the world. Ben Simmons, obviously defensively, is going to hold his ground. The Clippers, who were otherwise remarkable, were terrible when he was on the court last year. So I don't know about that. I don't think there's an obvious answer out there, but I do think it'll be telling who they bring in, because it'll tell you where they're most concerned, obviously.
Yeah, Simmons is interesting just because he can be point guard, he can be center, he can maybe be a forward. So in some ways that shields you from more, but he's not as good as potentially a Brogdon or someone else, whoever that may be, and Brogdon can, like, he's been on the Pacers, was on the Pacers for years. He can play both guard spots. He's very tall. If he's a 2, like, he's not a good 3, but he can play the 3. So that I agree that we'll be revealing, and like that's why Kolek Summer League was like, oh boy, because in theory he would have been one of the answers.
So it's interesting. Someone pointed this out, I think, in our comments. They could trade Kolek, and then there's a world where they could afford Ben Simmons and Landry Shamet. I have to triple check that, but I'm pretty sure that's correct. So maybe there's a world where that happens. Who knows?
Dang.
Yeah.
That would not explain, but like potentially be a reason this is going slow and delayed
on forever. Yeah.
Yeah, because I liked Kolek at times last year.
He was great. Yeah.
I don't know. I don't want to it's summer league. Like who?
No,
cares?
And I think he's almost better suited to like play with NBA players.
I agree. Thing is real players. Yes.
He's for my money, I think he might already, this is a weird tangent, but I think he might be a top 10 passer in the NBA already.
Like,
it's just
you can't as a sophomore be bad in summer league. Like I agree with what you're saying.
4-year-old, almost 25-year-old.
Yes.
Sophomore. Yeah.
I agree with what you're saying. To be clear, like the way he plays would be better with actually smart and good players, but that was not good.
No, but it's considered because in the NBA
and Dadier was bad too.
He was like, I think 3 points a game and shot like 16% from 3 and like 28% from the field. So that's concerning. But was there anything else about the Knicks? If not, I figured we could wrap up on just like the future.
No, I mean, despite that depth criticism, I in general like what they did with their resources, right? And the Bridges extension scares me a little bit, but you got to keep them, and they're going to be good for the next however long this course together. So being good for a long time is noble, even if not always the most exciting.
Yeah, so I guess to that point, because the Knicks are very locked in now. They seemingly, pending Giannis asking out tomorrow, like this is pretty much going to be the team for the next 3-4 years. Obviously, the NBA, anything can change. They could make a landmark trade. They could move on from Cat, like yada, yada, yada. They're one Haliburton-esque injury away from everything changing. But I'm curious because you just went over it, like with all the guys that are extension eligible for the Pacers, like it felt like this was going to be this really long run for them. And maybe that was part of the math in moving off of Turner, where they're like, we just want to make sure, like, no matter what happens this year, let's say Andrew Nembhard like puts up an efficient 22 a game and looks like the best point guard defender, top 3 point guard defender in the NBA. We have room to pay him. Like, how confident are you that Indiana's going to have a long runway here? Or do you think this is going to be a case where they end up moving off of, like, probably not Nembhard, but like some of the like more veteran guys on this team and try to retrofit around Haliburton, like, to be good in 3 years? As I say that, it sounds ridiculous because, to your point, most of this team is still so young. But I'm curious what you think the future for the Pacers is.
Yeah, Lau Murray, who covers the Clippers for The Athletic, every year in the summer he tweets this graphic that is every team and who was on their roster 5 years ago that's still on their team. And every year I'm like, man, the NBA
it's like 10 guys, right?
Fast. TJ McConnell's the only Pacer. Right? Like, it's wild. And I know that that's the case, but just like you can claim for forever that these runways are so long, and like OKC's probably is, but it's not. It's actually not for these teams. You know, it's just how the NBA is these days. And so I think a lot of the questions, the answers to your question will be based on how good Tyrese is when he comes back. And then Ben Mathurin this year is the other core guy that's like, he's extension eligible right now. He'll be a free agent next year, but he's definitely good. No doubt Ben Mathurin's a good NBA player. Does he fit the way the Pacers want to play? Has always been the question with him, and he'll have a huge role this year, and he'll have chances to answer that, right? So even like they could run out. He is kind of their swing guy to either trade for something else good or he becomes the good thing. Maybe Jarris Walker's the other swing guy, but you know, outside of that, like their window's as long as Tyrese Haliburton kind of allows it to be, and it's just kind of these ancillary pieces using the season to prove their case that they belong with that group, because Siakam, Nesmith, Nembhard, Toppin, McConnell, I mean, outside of aging, like they all proven that they're good players and they probably fit with the Pacers better than any other team in the league.
Yeah, I mean, the Haliburton injury is like basketball tragic on a million different levels, but purely from a selfish Knicks perspective, I do think the Knicks wanted a chance to climb that mountain to clear those demons, right? Because the guy does the choke signal like on your court in MSG and backs it up in overtime. I mean, that could have been that is the riskiest, ballsiest move. Because once that is not a 3-pointer, if the Knicks come back and win that game like that, that totally nullifies what Indiana did. And yet Indiana, they close it out. They win that game. They win the series. And like, there was a world where like, even with like the Knicks adjustments on the margins, like Indiana just had their number. And now it's kind of an open question. Like, are we going to see something resembling that version of the Pacers again, something resembling that version of the Knicks again, which is a shame because this was like, as you and I have discussed a million times, this was turning into a rivalry that more than did justice to what we saw from the two teams in the 90s.
Exactly. Pacers and Bucks 2 years in a row in the playoffs. Pacers and Knicks 2 years in a row in the playoffs. That's how rivalries are formed. It's fun, and we'll see you in 2 years.
Yeah, you know what? Maybe this is too presumptuous.
Honestly,
the Pacers are the 7th seed, and Nembhard drops 35 a game, and the Knicks lose again.
I joked about a series with the Bucks with Justin Garcia, but like that seems pretty unlikely because the Bucks can't get that high. But like a 2-7 Pacers Knicks is not out of the question.
I'll tell you what, if that happened and Indiana somehow won game 1, there would be some tight butts in MSG going into game 2. On that happy note, Tony East, you can check him out on Locked On Pacers wherever podcasts can be found, and of course, be sure to subscribe on YouTube. I think it's well worth your time at this point as a Knicks fan to keep up with everything Indiana does because they're very scary. Pacers fans, I hope you feel the same about Locked On Knicks. We'll talk to you very, very soon on both Locked On Knicks and Locked On Pacers.